You ever notice how living in a high-rise condo can feel like being part of a tiny, quirky society with its own weird rules and unwritten dramas? Well, that was exactly my life in South Florida. In this mid-sized building with a pool, some palm trees, and neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. Except for one guy, Bob Smith, the HOA president upstairs. And honestly, from the second I met him, it felt like I'd stepped into an episode of one of those reality shows about neighborhood feuds. Bob lived just a few doors down from my place, right above me actually, which only made things more interesting. He was the kind of guy who seemed to take spotting and fixing minor infractions like some personal mission. I mean, sure, we all want to keep our condos nice, but Bob? He was next level. I remember the first time he knocked on my door. This intense look on his face, like he was about to deliver some urgent public safety announcement. "Hey there. Just wanted to let you know your car registration is expired," he declared, as if he'd uncovered some major crime. I blinked at him, confused. My car? Registration expired? No way. I knew it was up to date. I even pulled out my phone to show him the handy app that confirms registration instantly. But Bob was not to be convinced. "Yeah, it shows here in the HOA records that it's expired. We have to keep all vehicles current to avoid fines," he said, voice low but serious, like he was delivering bad news from City Hall. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. Who was I to argue with the HOA president? Felt ridiculous. After I showed him the proof, his face actually contorted like I just embarrassed him. But instead of backing off, he just muttered something about, maybe the database is outdated, and made a mental note to check into it. It might sound silly, but that incident was the opening salvo in what would become a very annoying saga. Bob was the kind of guy who didn't just enforce the big rules. He lived for the tiny ones, for the stuff no one else would really care about. The height of your potted plants, the number of times you hung your towels on the balcony, and apparently your license plates. After that first confrontation, I found myself walking on eggshells, wondering what trivial thing Bob would come after next. And sure enough, it wasn't long before he was at it again. But that's a story for next time. Let's just say when Bob started targeting my parking habits, things really took a turn for the ridiculous. Alright, so here's where things got a little more ridiculous and honestly a bit exhausting. After our initial dust-up over noise, yeah, the early morning hammering and whatnot, Bob didn't just stop there. No, he decided to take it a step further. And this time his attention switched from my apartment to my truck. Now I drive a commercial work truck, nothing flashy, just a rugged old thing with my company's logo slapped on the side. It's my daily ride, my tool carrier, and honestly a necessary part of my job. The thing is, our condo's HOA rules don't allow commercial vehicles to be parked in the complex. I get it, they want to keep things looking nice for prospective buyers and the like. But here's the catch. I don't park the truck in the complex. Nope, I park it in the nearby city parks lot, a few blocks away. I even bought one of those city commercial parking passes, so legally I'm good. The first time Bob caught wind of this, he hauled himself down the stairs, probably wearing that smug grin of his, and told me, "You need to move that truck. It's against the condo rules." I told him straight up, "Bob, it's not here. It's in the city lot with a valid pass." He didn't like that answer at all. Here's where things took a turn for the absurd. Bob started calling the police on me. Multiple times. He reported me, claiming I was violating condo parking restrictions, that my truck was an eyesore, blah blah blah. The first couple of times the police showed up to ask questions, and I just show them my commercial parking pass. It's a little laminated card from the city that clearly allows me to park there. The officers were pretty chill about it, sometimes even chuckling a bit once they saw the pass. But Bob wasn't deterred. No sir. After the police every time left without acting on any complaint, Bob would march back upstairs, fuming, muttering about how I was bending the rules, being loose with the truth, and that he was going to take this all the way to the HOA board. Which, spoiler alert, he's the president of. Talk about bias. It was like this weird game of cat and mouse, the parking wars as I started calling it in my head. Bob making calls, raising a fuss, and me keeping cool, showing my pass. Still, it drove me nuts that he was so obsessed with policing where I parked my truck. I couldn't help but laugh though, because he was out of ideas and genuinely frustrated that I kept legally parking where I wanted without incident. From my perspective, this was less about trucks and more about control. Bob wanted to micromanage every little thing, from the noise to the parking, as if he owned the place. But here's the kicker. The more he tried to push, the more I realized he was digging himself into a hole. I started noticing that other neighbors were beginning to quietly side-eye Bob, maybe even pity me a little. I mean, who likes living under that kind of petty scrutiny? But I won't lie, after the 5th or 6th time the police came by, and after Bob's latest official warning letter slipped under my door threatening fines and penalties, I was done playing his game. That's when I decided it was time to get creative. To fight fire with fire, but in a way Bob least expects. And the story gets better from here. So, at this point I pretty much had it with Bob. You know, the guy upstairs who fancied himself the HOA's iron fist? Every little sound I made, footsteps, tapping, heck, even the faintest creak of my recliner, he treated like some felony against condo bylaws. And sure, I get wanting some peace and quiet, but Bob took it to a whole new level of obsession. Now here's where it gets good. Both of our apartments face north, giving us this sweeping view of the city parking lot below. One day I had this aha moment. I realized Bob spends most of his time out on his balcony, probably looking over basically everything and everyone. So what better way to send a message than from a spot he couldn't ignore? I own this box truck. It's nothing fancy, just my old beat-up work rig. But the roof is totally visible from his balcony. It took me a couple evenings, patience, and a lot of spray paint, but I got to work. Right on top of the truck, I painted big, bold letters. Below me, B.O.B. I made sure the lettering was crisp and could be seen from a distance. But I didn't stop there. Just under Bob, in smaller letters, I added a neat little acronym, BSH, which stands, of course, for Bob Smith's house. It was subtle enough that a casual observer might miss it, but for Bob, sitting up there and scanning the parking lot every day, it was impossible to overlook. I remember the first time I caught him on his balcony after the paint had dried. The way he just frozen mid-sip with his afternoon coffee. I swear you could see the gears turning upstairs. Was it anger, confusion, embarrassment? Maybe a bit of all three. The best part was that the sign wasn't vulgar or outright insulting. It was cheeky, playful, kind of a hey, you're the aim of this message wrapped up in a neat little package. But of course, the humor wasn't lost on the other neighbors. Word spread fast, and every time Bob came out onto his balcony, you'd see a few residents glance over with suppressed grins, maybe even a wink. It was like we had this ongoing silent joke, with me having the upper hand for once in a way that was funny rather than confrontational. Truth be told, painting that sign felt like a little victory. It wasn't about causing a big scene or trying to escalate things into a full-on HOA riot. It was just a creative way to say, hey Bob, I see you, I hear you. But maybe tone it down a notch. It was my quiet rebellion with a healthy dose of humor. Anyway, that below me B.O.B. sign up there on the truck became kind of legendary in our building. Every so often I'd catch Bob looking up at it, probably debating what to do, but always deciding against complaining again. After all, what could he do? It was my mess in my parked truck, and the perfect expression of playful defiance. And honestly, at that moment I realized something. Sometimes the people who try to micromanage every little thing can get outsmarted by the person who knows how to take a step back, have a little fun, and make their point in a way no HOA rulebook covers.